listening to the AI Moment with me, Jonathan Wagstaffe.
And me, Denhard.
And Dan, today we're going to talk about something that happened over Super Bowl weekend, which is a series of ads that Anthropic released around Claude. And I think it's not stretching things too far to say that ChatGPT was the target of those ads. And of course, you and I have seen them. In fact, you first sent them across to me. Very funny, worth watching, but they've caused something of a ripple. And we wanted to talk about what's happening then as ads start to appear in our LLMs. What are the implications of that? How do we think that's going to play out? So that's today's conversation. Dan, kick us off. Talk a little bit about those ads around Super Bowl weekend and maybe the response to them.
Sure. So ChatGPT were very much the butt of the joke, as it were. Claude by Anthropic, they ran 4 different ads. They ran one in the Super Bowl, but they had 3 supporting ads that really took shots at ChatGPT actually running ads or starting to put ads into your chats across the free and the go tier. It was very creative. It was very funny. I must admit, when I saw the first 2 and sent it to you, I didn't realize how clever they would be with it and how almost direct without naming they were. So I think it's very well done, very smart. Sam Altman, OpenAI / ChatGPT CEO, was not impressed at all. And as the words he used was rattled, I couldn't agree more, and sent a long scathing update basically suggesting that it's not going to be an interference. It will be additive. It'll be more Instagram ads than Google ads. So it's very much who did it best and who's had the smartest outcome when ChatGPT were almost reeling anyway since Code Red from their December update. And it really has given a few questions for maybe for us to answer. So when the ads went live on February 10th, it was obviously in the free and the almost free tiers. And what that's essentially done is put ads at the bottom of the chats that are relevant. And these are really expensive ads. They're not PPC, so they're not, 10p or 15p or cents a go. They are $60 per CPM. So cost per 1,000. It is for large wallets that they can open time and time again, which would suggest that their partners could influence them if they decided to pull that budget. And that's akin to what Netflix came out with when they started doing their ad-supported tiers. So it kind of says to me that ChatGPT are probably a few rounds down, and Claude really did put the boot in or had a good knockout in the 6th rounds. What's your opinion on it? How did you find it?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Sam Altman was rattled with that message he put out. I think it was on X, wasn't it? He put a piece out basically saying, to be fair, he acknowledged, he said they are funny, so that was good. He acknowledged that. But then he was sort of saying, I don't know why they tell lies about us, and so it was really quite a snarky response. It struck me, it's not at all clear how the whole ads on AI piece is going to work at the moment. So they may have been picking an angle that he didn't particularly think was the best angle. But to say that they're lying about what might happen, they're speculating on what might happen, and it's not really clear. AI is now going through that phase we've seen with so many technologies. First of all, there's the utility, then you scale it, and then you monetize it. And so like social media and like many other technologies in the past, we've reached the point now where AI has been, the utility is recognized, they've scaled over the last year or so, and now they're looking to monetize. And the AI vendors who are most aggressively monetizing are those who haven't got alternatives. So as you and I have discussed before, Google has a lot of places it can get revenue from other than Gemini. ChatGPT is really the place that OpenAI are going to get their revenue, and so they've got to do something. Then you get into the next wave, which is okay. Well, then if people are starting to increasingly use AI for answers, and we talked about having like some kind of AI assistant that can play your life, that's where brands are going to want to get to, isn't it? They're going to want to be in that place. And so what that starts to look like is as Jeff was saying the other week on the pod with him, it's like a new channel. It's a new attention economy. It's a new complete way of operating for brands and for everybody else in a new space, in a new attention economy, in a new channel. So how do you go and do that? Well, that's the piece that we've now got to work out, isn't it? What works and what doesn't in that space. Clearly, trust is going to be a huge part of that. How do you build that trust? How do you cover some of the things you've talked about where okay, how far can I trust what I'm being told because the sponsorship elements are there. It's a wild west at the moment. It really is. So for Sam to, I think Sam's snarkiness probably revealed he's a bit frustrated with it, and he may be clear about how he thinks OpenAI are going to work, but I think it was fair for the guys at Claude to have a little pop and just prod him and see what he did with it.
Yeah, my favorite sort of response or follow up over the time is once they've dug a little bit deep, once ChatGPT dug a little bit deeper and their team did, Anthropic haven't themselves ruled out running ads in the future. But what Anthropic have got that many others don't have is they have the engineers and the developer community that are heavily investing and buying their licenses. And almost every developer product person that I know are building everything on top of Claude, which means that there's huge investments that maybe were once upon a time in OpenAI and ChatGPT have moved. We all know that a lot of the time in modern technology where the developers want to spend their money is where it kind of is kept. So I think there is that side of it. And Anthropic aren't silly because they've been very deliberate in the focus of enterprise. They've been very deliberate in B2B. And what they've done is they've released certain updates that have sort of flirted and gone into consumer, which has then started to eat up a little bit more into market share. The funniest part of it was there's more people in Texas that have ChatGPT than the whole of Claude.
Yeah,
that's a lovely statement. But a little question to you: who earns more? Who makes more money? Is it OnlyFans, New York Times, or ChatGPT?
I guess it was OnlyFans probably. Is that fair enough?
Yes, OnlyFans makes more money than ChatGPT and New York Times combined.
That wouldn't surprise me.
And buy some. So it kind of shows you how people spend and where they spend is always going to be up to them. And AI is, because it is so expensive, needs another monetization arm. And as we all know, advertising is the dirty secret that no one loves talking about. But where the money's invested in advertising just grows and grows more industries and more verticals. So they're going to have to keep that. One area I think is going to be quite important moving forward is just, well, the trust is so low in AI and just the output and people using it away from weekends. Weekday usage is huge and is continually spiking upwards, whereas weekends isn't really moving. It drops way down. So it's still very much seen as a work tool, which is nice and easy for companies to have and connect with different partners to advertise. But trying to move the consumer behavior forward is going to be very difficult for them. So the revenue side and the commercialization of AI is going to be really tricky. And the winner of that either has an ads engine already or has to build one. So that might be where we land and where we get to in the very near future, like you were saying.
Well, I think you're right. I think back to some of the stuff we were discussing with Jeff the other week. I think where we've arrived already is I don't think we're quite ready for AI to go and do the buying for us. I don't think we're quite at that stage psychologically, but we are happy with recommendations. So for brands, that means they've got to think about, hey, how AI chooses its sources, how products get surfaced in an AI world, how credibility is measured in an AI world. It's those kind of things that mean that your LLM or your AI tool will recommend a product and then you make the decision about buying it. I think we are at that point, or we're certainly going to get to that point in 26. And then we may get to the point, beyond that fairly quickly where people say, just go and find me a whatever and buy it for me. So those things are all going to play. And we're back to, it's a new channel. It's a new model, right? One of the things I think that may have caused Sam to be a bit rattly was as you and I talked about, the latest numbers on usage are not happy reading, and for a ChatGPT and OpenAI, I think Gemini is up to about 25% of use overall. I think Grok's up to like 15, 16, and I think ChatGPT is around about 50% now. From this time last year when they were 95% or more. So they are fighting a maturing market, and one of the things that I worry about is they're starting to look like Netscape did during the first internet wave in the 90s. So just for those who may not remember that period, when the internet started to go mainstream in the early mid 90s, there were a plethora of browsers. Somebody came up with the idea of a browser and lots of people copied it. So all these little players like Mosaic and Roadrunner and then emerging from them was Netscape Navigator became the default browser, the one that everybody was using by about 94, 95, in the same way ChatGPT was 2 years ago. But then what happened in the late 90s was Microsoft came along with a browser offer, which they bundled with Office, and so effectively gave away for free. And that started to really damage Netscape's market because I think they were like $30 a product or something. And then Google came along a bit later with Chrome. And of course, they built that on the fact they got this massive search capability. So it became an indexed internet search engine built into the thing. And so we've seen that the browser world is illustrated today, where the main players are still Microsoft and Google, and then you've got Safari, one or two others. I really fear that Netscape's fate might end up being OpenAI's fate. I'm sure they're aware of that as well. But as you see Google start to flex its muscles now and some of the other players start to really get motoring, I'm just concerned. And I just think they've really got to think quickly about what they do. Revenue from ads is one thing they've got to try and do, but they're up against some big problems, big challenges.
Yeah, when you're like essentially the first mover, and then you look for first mover advantage, unless you can really drive huge adoption and keep innovating, there are going to be people who can copy you. So we've said this a number of times. You can one-click copy almost anything on the internet now, any app with one click. And to the point, if you see Gemini roll out an update, you'll see really quickly that OpenAI will roll an update, Anthropic will roll an update, and there's very specific copies and pastes that happen, and they're just slightly reworded in a recyclement statement. But what we're seeing is Gemini, what they were super clever at doing is influencing how people started to use the product, and they started to spend big on AI influencers and people who had a tech background with a big audience. They could start shifting out and sharing prompts and different use cases. And people were so curious they'd move over and start using it. So all these secondary movers are starting to have these bigger leaps and chunking away at market share and mind share, because the usage and the use cases are far more attuned and accustomed to what they're going to use. One thing that a lot of people have forgotten is what happens on most models happens on others. So you can just, if you've got a prompt, you can copy and paste and try it out on the different tools. And I think what Gemini did really well was, and really smartly was, they already had in-baked users because of Gmail and all the other Google Docs, etc. And what they did really well is it started to influence people more and more. And when it started appearing more and more in their work suite and through the different tools, was then the commercial and everyday use case started to merge together. So what you were using outside of work and what you're using inside of work, you could start seeing the different use cases and they would match together. Whereas I don't think ChatGPT did a very good job on that, and still don't do a very good job at understanding how the two worlds come together. So my prediction is unless ChatGPT cracks multiplayer first, so you go in there and you use it as a workspace, I don't think they're going to stop the rot almost and won't stop the exodus, because all these other tools are either the same price or cheaper, or they're going to be using it in multiple different ways, and it's baked into the phone and your operating system. Like you said, I have a little bit of a fear for OpenAI and ChatGPT, but I do see them slowly moving back towards creating products and features that people want to use. So the ads is going to be the true test. When an ad's added into something, it's not additive, it's reductive. Users will either revolt and go and use other tools, or just stop using it and move their £20 or dollars a month to another tool.
Yeah, I was thinking while you were talking there as well, I've not seen recently, there was a spate of announcements from OpenAI last summer about partnerships with HubSpot and with Google and other players. And I've not seen any of that. Now that might have been a victim of the code red in December, so they may have stopped. But I think one of the things I would be doing if I was Sam is I would be trying to embed it. I would be trying to develop the links to other things. I'd be trying to get it so that the cost of transfer is higher than it currently is, because as you just said, it's very easy to take all your libraries out of one LLM, drop them into another one, drop all the prompts into another one, they'll work. So it'd be interesting to see. One point, I was listening to Paul Raitzer from Smarter X talk last week, and he was saying he thinks possibly that Anthropic are now pranking OpenAI in that whenever there is an OpenAI release, there's an Anthropic release straight away, to your point. So that, the day that 5.3 ChatGPT comes out, Opus 4.6 comes out exactly the same time with the same advances around it. So your point may be valid. They're copying each other, but he even thinks that they're almost doing it to prank and wind up OpenAI. I don't know. Who knows? Stranger things have happened.
With the way technology moves and the way that AI enables so many possibilities, what's going to happen is what we saw in email marketing, what we've seen on social media, what we've seen in companies copying each other's apps and app features. It's something that recyclement happens over and over again. And I think that once we hit sort of middle of this year, we'll really start to see who's got the market share and who will win. And I think there's two things to look out for. It is where the developers are spending most of their money.
Yep.
And it's how many ads are forced into the chat products, LLM product. If either of those shift, then it gives you an idea. So there's that whole saying of what geeks do at weekends, or geeks and freaks do at weekends. It's what the normies will be doing over weeks to months later. I do think that these sorts of behaviors will really influence where it's going and how it's perceived and who will win out. For me, and a takeaway is, if you've got a lot of money, now is a great time to test ads and seeing how influential they can be, because you're going to be one of the first to do it. Obviously, it's a US first test. And then if you're concerned around what will happen when ads come in and connect into your business, because a lot of people do see that, is how do you start creating really specific environments and really specific experiences for your customers? So at the moment, everyone's flocking to AEO or GEO and trying to sort of appear there. What can you do once ads come in? What can you do to create a better experience? We've been saying this every few months on the pod, but what experiences can you provide that doesn't rely on AI, that will help people understand and seek you out anyway, as opposed to being forced to compete in an ad space on another surface with another tool? So there are two compelling ways that you can start testing it or start thinking about for the future.
Yeah, for the AI vendors, this how they introduce ads, how they introduce revenue, monetization, etc. It's going to be crucial for all the reasons we've talked about, that they cannot afford to dent trust. I mean, you could even see, it might even be a simple model that you bring in, which is our recommendation, our LLMs will operate independently as much as we can. We're not going to do anything with the LLMs that recommends products. But what there will be, if you're on the free version, as with YouTube, when you ask it a question, it's going to put an ad up for a few seconds before it answers your question. In the same way that YouTube, free version of YouTube, runs an ad before it shows you the video. That might be the safest way they could monetize. And maybe the ad it shows you relates to your question. So you've asked a question about, I don't know, where can I buy running shoes? And you get a running shoes ad. Similar with YouTube, that the ads relate to the video. So maybe that's maybe that's it. I just think they've got to be really, really careful if we start to see it in the feed. What are the takeaways for me, for the business leaders listening? The early signals are that AI advertising will prioritize visibility, will prioritize context, will prioritize recommendation over traditional clicks. So some of the stuff Jeff was talking about the other week on the blog. I think being part of the answer might be more valuable than being the top search result. So having the absolute answer to a certain question and you being the best answer to that question might be a better place to go. So what that means is that we're not about traffic acquisition as much as we're about trust positioning. Now, the trust, as we've said all along, trust positioning is going to be the real key thing there. So that's what I'd be thinking about with my content and my market plan. If I was a business leader right now, thinking about how do we play in this world, think about what exactly niches, what questions are we answering, what niches are we playing in, how can we be those trusted voice in those niches? That's where we've got to go, I think.
Exactly right. In the supporting newsletter, we will add in the ads. We'll add in a couple of other additional points in, potentially even a takeaway or two, because we add in templates and checklists and documents there too. So I highly recommend you subscribe to our twice weekly newsletter.
Good to see you, my friend, and I will see you next time.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks for listening today, everyone. If you liked what you heard, please give us a rating and review in any of the podcast players. We have a supporting newsletter, which is aimoment.co.uk, that comes out on Mondays and Fridays with every pod, and we dive a little bit deeper. So please subscribe there. Have a great week, and we'll see you soon.